Daubney, your thoughts on it?
Well, a very dramatic picture painted, and one obviously echoes the death of Diana. Straight away, our mind is in that underpass in Paris, echoing that. But we must remember that New York, after London perhaps, is one of the most CCTV'd cities on the entire planet. So we'd expect evidence, or lack of, to start emerging pretty soon. But it's very telling, I think, that the mayor has got on the front foot and basically denied a version of events, and that, I think, is important to do, because it's a serious security breach for a city of international repute like that. It's a great allegation to lay at his door. So the fact he's come out, I think, is very telling, and it links into this story I think we're going to cover in a minute about Harry demanding extra security.
Yeah, indeed, we are going to come onto that. That's the whole question of, essentially, what some are saying, should guns be for hire, Met Police? Should Prince Harry be able, when he's in the UK, to pay for the Met Police to protect him, his wife and his family? What do you make to that? He's challenging a judgment that basically said that he couldn't do that. We'll come on to that in just a sec. But what do you make to this whole car chase thing?
I echo what Martin says, really. I mean, I feel for them in a way, in so much as this may just be hyperbole on the part of a press officer. You know, there's obviously a world of difference between, quote-unquote, a car chase and simply being followed in a way that can be very aggressive, but also legally, by paparazzi. It happens to celebrities all of the time. But, yeah, one, like you say, to some extent, undermines and discredits the reputation of New York City, and the other doesn't. So you can understand why the mayor has intervened in the way that he has. Initially, I found it rather unprofessional that a mayor would respond to these claims rather than a senior police officer, given that, you know, traffic violations are their responsibility. But I think the point that Martin makes is pretty fair.
Before I do come on to this Met Police, and you can get your thoughts into me on that, but you were involved in magazines,
yep,
celebrities and all the rest of it. What do you think to the way that paparazzi behave?
Well, it's a part of the job. I've been with people like Katie Price or Abby Titmus, hardly royalty, nevertheless, were mobbed by paparazzi. Noel Gallagher, Liam Gallagher, I've been out on nights out with them, and it is a part of the routine of being a global megastar that you are mobbed by paparazzi. There's a mutually beneficial relationship. Oftentimes, it does cross the line, of course, when it becomes very invasive. I've seen paparazzi jumping over security gates, on mopeds in front of the cars, prohibiting their passage to get pictures. It is a part, unfortunately, of being that famous. When it crosses the line and gets towards endangering safety, of course, that's a separate issue. That's what this story is about. Have the paparazzi crossed the line? And I think it's interesting that it's not the British paparazzi that are getting the stick this time, it's American paparazzi. But it remains to be seen. There are several versions of the same event already. So we need to wait for the full truth to come out.
Well, that's why I was very clear in directly quoting the spokesperson's statement, because there are very different languages being used. And when we talk about what is the line and have they crossed the line, Aaron, will be very different for different people. And Prince Harry, given the experience of his mum that we're all familiar with, his line, perhaps, with what's acceptable paparazzi behaviour and what's not, will differ. And I will show my age to you now. But 17 years ago, and yes, I know I don't look old enough, ladies and gents, don't worry about that. 17 years ago, I was on reality TV, The Apprentice, which I won. Yes, I know, very good. I won. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is because I was just a normal, regular person that went onto this reality TV show. I was not experienced in the world of media and fame and all the rest of it. The way that the press... And I won't say hounded, because that's a bit extreme, but the way that I was suddenly catapulted into this world of, and I will say celebrity, I'm not describing myself as a celebrity, so don't worry, everyone, but it's more like you're in this kind of world, like a celebrity thing. And I was followed by men in cars, and that to me was what they were. There were men in cars following me. Yes, they happened to have a camera, but nonetheless, I felt very intimidated. I remember being on a tube platform once, and this guy coming and standing so close to me, and I was terrified. I thought, is this fella, is he like a bit of a wacko? Is he going to push me off? And I was frightened. And they used to sit outside my house.
Yeah.
They used to ring my doorbell and say all kinds of weird things that were not perhaps true to get reactions from me, and it frightened me. And I'm quite like a ballsy girl, you know. I'm not like I'm not a wet lettuce. I don't get frightened for silly things, but they did used to frighten me.
Well, that sounds appalling, and I think that's completely unacceptable, particularly if it's a single woman just just because we know statistically those kinds of people are prey to all kinds of awful behaviour. I'd say in the case of Harry, look, this guy has published the quickest-selling work of non-fiction in the UK and the US ever. He is trying to be a variable in the political and cultural life of this country and the US that will come with some scrutiny. That will just come with some scrutiny. And like you say, we'll talk about whether or not the taxpayer should fund his security or whether they should fund their own security, how they wish to do that. But I do feel like, to an extent, this is the game you're playing. It's a high-stakes game, by the way. It's a political game with the monarchy in this country and trying to, quote-unquote, clear his name or make his argument or whatever. And I do feel like, yes, you're going to be scrutinised by the media in very particular ways. That's not always going to be, nice, but to an extent, because, of course, he was a royal, he was born into this anyway, but to an extent, that is the life he's chosen. I certainly wouldn't choose it myself, and I think it raises questions, actually, about life isn't always particularly pleasant when you're rich and famous.
Well, is it a double-edged sword? Should it be a double-edged sword? Can you have the one side of it, which is the fame, the fortune, the glamour and the adoration of fans, without having the other side, which is, unpleasant behaviour from time to time? Is there a line? Who decides what the line? What is that line to you? Let's talk then, shall we, about what, the court case, about whether or not, and I'll just be crass with my wording, but the Met, should there be guns for hire, essentially, for Prince Harry?
No. Basically, Harry is acting like an NHS health tourist, but with security. He's come into Britain and demanding it for free. Well, that was turned down. Now he wants to use his fat chequebook to buy the best protection. Why should a member of the public buy the best members of a force which is actually there, paid for by the taxpayer, paid for by us and all GB News viewers, to protect the public from serious breaches of security, such as terrorist risks, which we know are high in London especially? Harry's trying to buy the best treatment. The Met shouldn't give it to him. And by the way, the person who's placed Harry's life in the greatest danger is himself. When he starts talking about how many people he'd taken down or helped to take down in the Taliban in Afghanistan, he directly rocketed himself up the security risk. And I wonder, call me a cynic, and again, this is a fast-moving story, but is revving up the perceived danger towards him a part of the play of saying, well, actually, we better give him security? Call me a cynic. You cynic,
Daubney.
Call me a cynic.
Guns for hire, so to speak.
I entirely agree. The police are there to uphold the rule of law and provide equality under the law for absolutely everyone. The precedent that was submitted by Harry's lawyer was that football clubs contribute towards public order policing.
I was just about to say that to you.
My apologies. and I think that's a bit...
Stop nicking my laugh.
Sorry. But that's a bit different because it's public order policing. I think when an individual can basically pay for a service that other people don't benefit from, I think that undermines the whole idea of what a public police force is for. And the counter-argument might be, well, that would contribute towards paying for more police or whatever. I think that's a very slippery slope, the idea that there's a two-tier police force, so to speak, one for the ultra-rich and one for the rest. My goodness, when you look at the amount of crimes that aren't being solved already, I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah, even like within this building, that there are security guards that work at GB News that are fantastic, and they work for high net worth individuals. Harry can afford to get his own security, not the taxpayers.
Yes, but then the pushback to that would be, yes, of course, I can afford my own security, but they wouldn't have the intel that, for example, the Met Police would. By the way, a lot of people taking issue with what you said when you described Spare as a work of non-fiction. A lot of people disputing that.
You're worrying me there,
that
Michelle.
Category, I could tell you. Right, get me your thoughts coming in, because I want to reflect some of your feelings on that one tonight in just a sec. But